What is up, guys? So, this episode is Geek Culture in the Modern Society. What we're talking about is, a lot of you watching this is probably, in some form or fashion, this is either you're geeks or nerds, and you want to hear about geek and nerd culture. Some of you might not be a geek at all, and you might be like, what is geek culture? And hey, this topic is said by these three geeks. So let's listen to them. We're all three geeks of different calibers, as we've talked in previous episodes. And I feel like that really gives us a good variety of what makes it, what is geek culture like to us? What is it like being a geek in modern society? What is it like dating in modern society as a nerd, as a geek? Hannah's extreme. So Hannah is single as of filming this episode. I'm married to Stacy. So because of that, really the question becomes, what is it like being a geek in today's society? Let's get chatting. Hi guys, I'm Nicholas.
I'm Stacy.
I'm Hannah.
And this is Three Geeks Chatting. With today's episode, I really wanted to kick it off by asking everybody a question.
I already said yes.
Not that question. So this is a very dire situation we're in. And I need to know,
Do I need my lightsaber?
do you always need the lightsaber? How bad have you guys been treated solely based on the fact you're a geek? If you listened to last episode, we talked about what made us a geek and how we became geeks. For me, it was childhood. It was ever since I was born. Hannah talked about when she was about 10, she really got into the geek culture. Stacy didn't say an age, but she was little, and it was with The Little Mermaid. How bad have you guys been treated being a geek? We're gonna touch deeper into modern society as a geek, but for now, this is where I want to start.
Depends on the environment that you're in. Depends on the environment. Like, if you're around other fellow geeks, like my greatest movie experience was I got to see Star Wars Episode 3 at the midnight showing. Everybody dressed up. Some guy came in a really good Darth Vader costume, and he came in and he lit it, and everybody went, "Wah!" And the whole not talking thing went out of the window with, the knowledge that they wanted to watch the movie. But when Yoda came in and boom on those two guards in Darth Sidious's office, everybody just started clapping and cheering. It was kind of like when the Spider-Man showed up in
No Way Home.
No Way Home.
That was probably my best movie
That was-
experience.
Yeah,
so good.
That was so good.
So, like, in those experiences, very good, very accepting, very loving. Comic-Con, anime cons, depends on who you're interacting with. Mostly accepting.
Some of them
Awkward.
Some of them a little flirtatious with my wife. I remember you
I had a guy tell me he wouldn't bite me unless I asked him to.
was not dating. I wasn't even dating
You
her.
weren't there.
I wasn't even dating her. I never knew this guy.
This thing is not gonna live. I'm talking about my tablet here. I just about knocked it off the table again. Yeah, that was like the awkward, like, hi,
Run.
no, thank you. But
So
that
Jack,
also
Jack,
might be
TikTok.
Run.
Yeah.
Run.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. But that might also be part of being a female in the nerd culture. Can be part of the male, because I know men get it as well.
Well, I feel like
Um,
too that there's not a whole lot. I know there is some, but there's not a lot of like female nerds.
No. But
I
I
would
do think females. It's becoming more common for girls now to
But it didn't
say
start
they are.
out.
Way back then, no, it wasn't.
when we're talking about, so something to clarify, when we're talking about women not being huge in the nerd culture, uh, or geek culture, geek community, what we're referring to is where we currently are, where we were when this happened.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Our area is not very.
Our area is not very accepting of a lot of extreme geek and nerd culture. Some of the, if you are from places such as California, you may have a giant population of women who are into this. This is not in any way us saying that women aren't. There's not a lot of women in it. This
I
is
just feel like for around here.
This
Yeah,
is
around here.
I want to clarify. That's for us in
And we're
our area. And we're
Yeah.
canceled. Yeah.
Woo! All right. It's good to see you guys. All right. But like that also, like I said, because we had this discussion at our last Comic Con. We were sitting here scrolling through the art, and there's a very not safe for work friendly photo of Ahsoka Tano. And I'm like, okay, why do I see 15 of these and none of male characters? Like, okay, where's the male characters? And some guy next to us was like, because you heard him.
He goes because men aren't that good looking.
Another guy said that. So.
Yeah, that's what the other guy said. He goes because men aren't that good looking.
Yeah, I'm searching through all these fan, art, very beautiful art, very cool. Some of them very, very not safe for work, and I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't want to see her in that light because I love Ahsoka Tano. Did not want to see her in that light. Think that
We have a cat named Ahsoka.
We do. We named our cat Ahsoka. But I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, why they do not do this for men? I found one photo that they did it for men, and it wasn't even really that much. It was Sam and Dean washing the Impala, and that was the only one. But it's like going to seeing all that stuff. It can be a little interesting sometimes for girls, women in our area.
I feel like it's more judged.
It's a little more judged around our area, and we're canceled. Anyway, so
and we're canceled. Good job, guys. Okay, let's go home. Wrap this up. I will say, we traveled a pretty good distance to a Comic-Con recently,
where I saw the photos,
and the demographic there, it was very
much better.
different, and there were a lot of women there who were also dressed up and cosplaying.
Yeah,
it wasn't just men, and I think one of the good things about current modern day, being a geek modern day,
Mhm.
is there's a lot of areas where it's not accepting, but there's so much social media out there that really shows off how popular it is across the board, gender wise.
That culture, several hours away, like I said, it depends on your environment, how you're treated, no matter what you are, whether you're a geek, whether anything. It depends on the environment you're in. So that environment was more accepting in everything. Like you walk by someone, I say, I love your costume. Like, thank you so much. And that's so cool. And then I'm guessing people's cosplays wrong, and my husband's laughing his head off.
So how would you say you've been treated for being, I guess, a woman who goes to these conventions, like across the board? Would you say that geek culture has been kind to you?
For the most part, yes. Sometimes it's, like I said, sometimes it's awkward. A few times I have been told, hey, that's not a good thing to get into. You shouldn't do that.
A lot of that.
I do get a lot of that, but that's not where you're surrounded by other geeks. It's the people who are not surrounded by geeks. So But I have had a lot of that, and I've had a lot of support and everything. So, like I said, it depends on your environment, how you're treated, how you're supported. That is your environment.
What about you, Hannah?
I think like if you don't have the same type of friends, you just get viewed at as weird.
And that's also true.
Like,
That's
why
very
would you
true.
like this? Why do you obsess about this? Why do you go into this sense of why do you collect everything? It's just weird. It's a waste of money. It's weird. Versus when you have friends that do like all that and they go in your room and like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Let's pack your whole room up because I want it. Versus someone who walks in.
I've said that to her before too. Like, hey, can I just have all of these?
No, we don't have room.
No. So it's just very different aspects. So if someone walks in your room, it's like, who's that pop figure versus someone that walks in and is like, oh my gosh, you have that.
Yeah.
You know.
Like I said, your friends create different environments, who you're around.
You get
It's an
excited to talk to them versus people that are like, okay, that's weird. I don't really care so stop talking about it.
Along the lines of, so I will say what I think is across the board, no matter where you grow up at, especially as if you're an adult, you've probably all experienced this. If you are younger and you're listening to this podcast, you might not be too familiar with this concept, as I feel like geek and nerd culture are growing more popular. It is making people cooler. I think it's becoming more acceptable, more mainstream. So me growing up, I grew up in a pretty decent sized area, very populated, advanced high school, stuff like that. One of the big things with where I grew up, one of my best friends was really like I wouldn't say like one of the cool popular sports kids, but he was pretty well known, and he didn't have any like anyone who was like, oh man, look at that nerd, stuff like that. Huge into filmography and directing and making YouTube videos. And I remember for us, we went and saw The Force Awakens once, and I was living at home still. We went out. I was in. We left at 7 p.m. at night. Stayed out until 5 in the morning at a 24-hour McDonald's. Stayed out all night. Watched The Force Awakens, which was like my third time viewing it in theaters, and just sat out talking about it. I mean, in there was no consequences to that. As I said in my previous video, my parents didn't monitor really a lot of what I did. As long as I wasn't dead, they didn't really care what I did.
Oh, I was like, that's what you watched, but
Yeah, they didn't monitor what I watched, and they didn't really care too much what I did. But what made it so different though was there were people in my school who were really nerdy and geeky and into this stuff, and they were harshly judged. They were viewed very poorly. I hung out with a lot of the kids who were viewed this way. At the time, I wasn't very outspoken, so not a lot of people knew that I was into a lot of geek culture. They knew I liked video games, but it wasn't like, oh, he's an anime cosplayer, stuff like that, which I don't cosplay, but not a lot of people knew what I did outside of school. I didn't really tell people, I didn't talk to people. We remember being judged for what we do. The amount of times that people have said that's evil, or you shouldn't do that, or why do you like that?
Why do you stay up all night playing video games with friends? Let's go to bed.
Yeah, and then proceed to stay up all night at a bar playing like darts or card games or something like that. But like completely plastered out their mind by the end of it. I mean, it really is shocking on how geek culture has changed now. We talked last episode about how the Marvel Cinematic Universe really blew up uh, mainstream comic books. I believe they really changed how people viewed comic books. I mean, comic books are
I've gotten to started reading more comic books and wanting to since I watched Marvel Universe because it's like it goes into a deeper explaining of everything that happens.
oh yeah, and they're not even like bad. I think there's a lot of people who still don't read comic books, but being able to say, yeah, I have these comic books doesn't feel as shameful as society once made it feel.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have felt that, but I definitely
Well, I feel
think
like comic books are just like okay, that's more of like a reading aspect, and a lot of people read and they don't consider that as like geeky nerdy as versus they walk into your room and it's like full of everything
Funko Pops, posters,
Yeah.
collectibles.
versus just a few stacks of comic books that you have in the corner of your room that if someone walked in they would never see. And if you never said you read comic books, you wouldn't know. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I have all I wear is Marvel t-shirts, Star Wars t-shirts, geeky t-shirts, so people know that I'm a geek when I walk out the door.
Mm. Yeah, no, I completely I agree to that aspect. You looked at, we Dungeons and Dragons was one of those things that I wouldn't say it was dying, but it was very rare and solemn to see it really around as much as it is now. Ever since Stranger Things.
Stranger Things, the Dungeons and Dragons movies. They even have several shows on Netflix. The biggest thing would be Critical Role, and there's a few other podcasts that play
Dimension 20.
Dimension 20. That's the one I was trying to figure out.
Dungeons and Daddies. I mean,
Oh, Dungeons and Daddies. We love that one.
it really D&D's become such a mainstream thing as well. I believe geek culture is shifting tides to go deeper into the geek culture outside of comic books and video games. Look at or comic books and D&D. Look at video games.
I think some of it has to do with some of the stuff is when it's first started out, like Iron Man and stuff, he's just building a metal suit.
Yeah.
And flying around. Basically, that's it. And then the farther we get into it, we have more magical powers because Doctor Strange comes in, Wanda. Then we have who else?
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. He gets bit by a radioactive spider. So you have more far out there. Thor. Far out there that people think are.
You and you got Wonder Woman, Superman, Batman on the other side of
the Flash. I mean, he gets struck by lightning, can have speed. The Arrow gets trapped on an island and then turns into.
DC.
What would you consider?
The Arrow.
Yeah, starts out as a killer and then decides it's not a good way and then decides to protect the city. So I mean, and then they think, okay, well that's weird. Why would you want to watch that?
Oh yeah, and that's the thing. Like DC took the TV or TV shows by storm. Marvel took over movie cinematics by storm. I mean, you were having two fronts of these massive dramas going on, and then you have podcasts like Critical Role, who's taken over the internet for D&D, Stranger Things. You have YouTube. All these things are becoming more accurate, and people of geek and nerd culture we're taking over, massive media fronts. Then you get into video games, and even video games, even in schools, have esports teams around.
It's becoming more common now.
Around the United States. I mean, when I was in high school, I would have killed for an esports team. I would have went to Halo. You know what I could have done with Halo at that time? I would have I would have done some damage to some of those kids in high school if they put me on a Halo esports team. I was in I was in hate clans on Halo doing massive battles and small tournaments when I was in 6th and 7th grade with like grown adults. I was a 7th grader in small tournaments online for these teams. I couldn't tell people that though.
I think some of it too is like the people that's not really into it sees you buying all this stuff and they think it's a waste of money, so they tell you like you could be buying on more productive things than what you're spending on.
Right.
So you kind of get judged from that aspect too.
Like I said, it just all goes back to your environment that you're in.
Yep.
Because like back then, your environment was they didn't have esports; it was all sports, normal sports, and now it's come into they have esports and stuff.
Esports.
Yeah, esports. That's more common now.
MLG.
So in some areas, it's not very common still. So like I said, it's your culture, it's your environment, it's just where you're at, how you're treated. Some people are treated, terribly. Some people are treated wonderfully. Unfortunately, some people are treated terribly. It's not fun.
Sadly, I think a lot of people in the geek culture are treated terribly. I honestly think that I'm very open where I work about what I enjoy, but there are times when I don't talk a lot about it because even working with grown men, they still will. I mean, I'm doing the same job as them. I'm working the same thing they are. They're nowhere different than what I'm doing. And there are some grown men who still have that view of, oh, whoa, that's immature or that's childish or, it is what it is. But I truly think while geek culture is growing, at the same time, it still has a lot of people pushing against it for multiple different reasons. Uh, and I think that really affects uh, the social aspect. I mean, being a geek, being a high functioning geek or nerd is weird at times. You know,
Growing up, not being accepted in a lot of stuff makes me very uncomfortable sharing my thoughts. Makes me very uncomfortable and anxious about sharing things that I enjoy. And I just wait for everybody else to talk about. They wouldn't like, what do you like? Oh, just fun stuff like games. Like, we have board games or something. I won't tell them a whole lot. People who are close to me that see me all the time, they know I love Star Wars. They know I love Dungeons and Dragons. But I don't get into a lot of deep details about it because growing up where it wasn't as accepted, as environmentally acceptable, still has an effect on me today as an adult. I was the weird kid when I was little. I was the weird kid. I was I didn't have a whole lot of friends growing up.
I still don't have a lot of friends.
No.
You have 5. You talked about this last one.
Yeah.
Anyway, but now it's becoming more socially and culturally acceptable to be a geek and everything, and I love that, and I'm so excited about that, and it makes it so much easier. But it's still past trauma makes it hard to talk about.
And I definitely agree, and I feel like that affects so many more aspects than people realize, because it really, you're hiding who you are.
I was going to say it comes more down to being afraid to show your true self.
Yeah,
because of what people will say.
I think that really messes with people. I mean, even now, like I still.
You don't want to be open and honest.
Yeah, and it makes you feel alone. And
in the circles that you do find where you can be open and honest, like us when we're by ourselves and we're all together and we're having a good time. I have people on the internet I can share that with, and I'm comfortable, and I can tell them all about that, and they're excited for me, and I'm excited for them, and it's totally comfortable. But like outside world, walking around, if you get excited like about something, like if like you find a book you've been looking for, and you go yes, people look at you and stare at you weird. At Comic-Con, found a book I really liked. I went, yes! And everybody's like, what do you got? And it's just like, yeah, this is cool. It depends on your, like you said, I've been saying this whole time. It depends on your environment, how you're treated. That's how you react. That's how you learn to adapt to everything that we have grown up with and have experienced growing up as a geek.
I feel like it also makes dating harder. Now, me and Stacy are married. We dated for a little bit, and we were just friends for a very long time. But I remember trying to date as a geek, as a nerd, throughout high school, throughout middle school, throughout my college career before I dropped out. It was difficult because people were really hard to talk to about what I was interested in because it was almost a shameful experience, you know. And I don't know what your guys. I mean, I know what Hannah's dating life's been like. I don't know what your dating life was like.
The first relationship really didn't last that long. I've only been in like 3 serious relationships. That includes you.
I won. Suck it.
It didn't last very long, but I think he was aware of what I liked and stuff, but it wasn't long. It was only a few months. The next one, we shared the same love of Star Wars. So that's what basically bonded us and everything. So we had a bond there in that. And then that lasted a couple years. And then that ended. And then I decided it was easier to be single. So that's probably when I blossomed into my geekiness, like everything. Dating you, again, that's basically what introduced us is our being geeks, being able to talk about it and compare stuff and enjoy and have conversations, and you teaching me things and I teach you things about each other's geek life. We have more than just geekiness that we love about each other. It's just 90% of our personalities. Even today, like this is probably the hardest, even though this is our third technical episode, this is the hardest for me to do, is talking about geek culture and how I've been accepted and rejected and stuff and how it has integrated into my life. Like I feel a little fear about this episode, just to be honest with you.
It is hurtful, and if you're not, but I feel like that's why it's so important because I feel like people who are geeks, who are nerds, should know that they're not, for one, that they're not alone.
Yeah.
But it's also important that if you're not a nerd, if you're not a geek, that trust me, we see it. You're not hiding it. If you are a person who has looked at someone funny, I would bet money that they noticed it. I really do. At least one person, and it's important for us that people do know that one of the things with this podcast is to bring people in that they have a new community. They have people who are like us, who see us, who I've never
they can
met.
come to us with how their opinions, and we don't judge them for liking the thing.
Not
they don't judge us for liking the things or our opinions, hopefully. But they don't have to fear.
There's a lot of rejection in geek culture.
Mm-hmm.
What has it been like? Because you're currently single. What has it been like as a nerd, as a geek, in today's society for you?
Well, I mean, I do think it'd definitely be easier to find someone that you share the same interest in. I have not yet had that experience. Everybody that I've been with never really liked it. Like, some of them was okay with it. Like, yeah, you want to go watch this movie? Sure, I don't really care. I don't have no idea what's going on. And I don't feel like it makes the experience as fun. You know what I mean? Like, you're over here rambling about how excited and everything, and then just like, so today, you know, they don't care, and it doesn't make it as fun. And I mean, that's not everything you have to have in common with someone, but I feel like it is a little harder to find someone that have the same interests, because when it all boils down to the fact is you're gonna have to have someone that you share a common interest in and go do fun stuff. You're not gonna enjoy everything that the other person does and everything like that, but I mean, you have to have more than just one or two things in common to really, you know,
Right.
make it work. But I mean, at the same time, I don't know. It's just, it can be difficult because, you know, some people think it's weird, or why do you want this, or you know, okay, if we do get serious or whatever, you're not doing this anymore. You're not buying, you're not watching this. You know.
Yeah, those have been fun. That's been fun to hear about. Is when people say you're not allowed to do this no more.
Like, if you find someone that is more into the stuff you're into, you don't feel as lonely.
I'd agree, yeah.
Because you can excitedly share your stuff. Versus someone, like I just said earlier, that doesn't even care and is just listening because they feel like they have to. And they just really simply want to tell you to just stop talking about it and change the subject. Or, I don't want to go watch this movie, but if I tell her I don't, she's going to be mad, blah, 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 blah. So they just go watch it and not really enjoy it or want to do it. But they just do it because they don't want to cause a fight or anything like that.
On that note, Stacey, I have something to tell you.
Oh, God.
Wow.
I do not want to watch Indiana Jones. do not have an interest in Indiana Jones. I'm sorry to break it to you.
Yeah, he doesn't want to watch Indiana Jones with me, which is fine.
However, on that note, we have watched Indiana Jones together.
We watched two.
Well, I mean, you're
Yeah.
gonna have certain things that's not always in common, and that's fine.
That's fine. I mean, because he likes a lot more animes than I do, and I'm just like, yeah, you can watch it. And then he likes the video games that I don't like. Like, I and Hannah and I, not the biggest fans of Rainbow Siege 6.
Rainbow Six Siege.
Oh, see, yeah, I can't even do the thing. I apologize.
Otherwise known as
Let's see.
trash,
His environment.
Toxicity.
anger,
Aggression. It's like a really bad Powerpuff
breaking
Girls.
your remote,
Throwing the keyboard.
You threw the keyboard?
No.
punching your screen,
I know
getting
you did, yeah.
screamed at.
Yeah. They're
But
being cursed out for
Although-
accidentally dying.
Oof, yeah. I also feel like Call of Duty is very toxic.
Oh, it is. It
Very
is.
toxic.
To go along with geek culture, something to remember is your environment plays a big part of it. But your environment is not just outside around everybody else. You have to remember that you have an environment inside. You have a culture that you're building inside where you live, inside your friend group. If you have friends who are just not nice about what you do, I'm sorry, you probably want to get better friends. You know, in all honesty, surround yourself with a culture that understands what you're into. They don't have to all be into the exact same things, but if they're just as supportive and enthusiastic about it as you are, surround yourself with them. I mean, that it's better. You know, I feel like that's important with geek culture. Is
important with any culture.
yeah,
It's important for being a human.
you know, find your culture. If you're listening to this and you're not a geek, that's fine.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a geek. You don't have to be a nerd. It is such a broad statement. You know, I would go as far as to say people who are really into sports are sports geeks. You know, I mean, everyone's a geek. It's being really into stuff. It's
Yeah, that's true. But I just feel like when you say, like, you're a nerd, you just get more. Okay, the weird stay away versus
Yeah,
like a sport nerd.
for us where we are, I feel like geeks are cool hipster kind of people, while nerds are the stereotypical TV nerds. In some aspects, in some places, even an hour from where we currently are, nerd is like, oh yeah, they're the cool nerds, and geeks like, oh, they're the weird. You got to stay away. I mean, the term nerd and geek kind of flip flops depending on where you're at. But I think they both, if you're a nerd or geek, you are. It's the words one in the same. In all honesty, it's one and the same, in my opinion. You guys feel a little less alone. Uh, Hopefully, you guys kind of heard three random people on the internet's perspective of what geek culture is.
In our personal experience. We hope you feel a little less alone. We hope you have great experiences in your areas for your geek culture. Share your geek culture below. Tell us all about it if you want, or if you don't want to, that's okay too.
With that, guys, thank you so much for listening, for watching, for checking out our channel, checking out TikTok, YouTube, wherever you find your podcast. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be having an amazing day, afternoon, nights, evenings, whatever time it is when you are listening to this podcast. We will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.